get him more. Oh, I guess I suppose we could do this.
Oh, yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm Joe, and this is Felipe. This is the Rundown Baseball Media Show. Now you're listening to the Mariners specific podcast show video, and we're going to talk about our hometown team because we live in Seattle, Washington, in the area, and exciting news, really exciting news. For the first time in 20 years, the Mariners are in first place in the playoff race in the AL in the division. I'm so excited. I can't even talk this late in the season for the first time in 20 years. So what do you think about that? Do you think the Mariners can hold on, or do you think we're going to fall off and just get a wild card spot?
First, I want to say I don't want people to be fooled because I'm wearing a Cubs hat. Okay, even though I know we're talking big Mariners and I'm wearing a Chicago Cubs hat. Okay, but I think it's so exciting. It's so exciting, and I think it's almost, to me, it's so like over the top exciting that I don't know how to act a little bit. Right? I think in last year especially, I was crazy. I was going all over the time, like, oh my god, playoffs. I can taste it. I can feel it. Everybody can feel it. And now we're actually talking about division aspirations. This team is built for a World Series run if we can get in. And I think that's so exciting. And I know there's other Mariner fans out there that are so excited that I don't know if we're ready for that.
No, I don't know. How do we act?
I don't know. Like, even talking about it, I'm like, this. I'm jinxing it or something because we've been used to so many down seasons, so much disappointment, and it's right there. If this team wins the World Series, I don't know what the city will do. I just don't know if we even know how to celebrate, right? But to answer your question, do we win this division? I don't know. It's so close with Houston and Texas, but the fact that we have the opportunity and we are in a position to do that, I think is so amazing. It's really well earned. The struggle of this season, the way the season has kind of played out, was very disappointing in the beginning of the season. I think there were so many expectations coming off of last year that when we didn't play well and we were struggling and we were at a point where we were 50-50 as a record, Julio wasn't playing well. Teoscar, who was our new acquisition, our big offensive bat that we were supposed to have, was not really panning out. We had, 4 guys for the longest time in the top 5, I think, in strikeouts as offense. Pitching was struggling a little bit in the beginning. Just in general, this team struggled getting traction. And now that we are at this point is super impressive. The resiliency and the not willing to give up and roll over kind of attitude of this team has been really impressive and really cool to see. Do we win this division? I'm not sure. Do we get in the playoffs? I think 100% at this point. Which is also exciting. So that's kind of like, not to jinx it, but I think getting back-to-back years in the playoffs is really what the fans deserve, and I think is well deserved for this team. Yeah, and I think towards the end, after the trade deadline, we've been seeing a little bit more of a fire in these players. They want to play for each other. They wanted to prove to management that they were not out yet. That even though the Seawald trade looked like a sell trade, that they still believed that they could make the playoffs, and they had finally this fight that we hadn't seen from them all year. This refuse to lose. You guys remember the 95 season, right? Refuse to lose. And they came back. They were 7 games down, right? 10 games ago. They were 7 games out of the division league. Well, even I think at one point 10 out, right?
And 10 out, right? Recently. So, as long as they keep this fight in them, like you said, they're built for the playoffs. We got 3 pitchers that can go up against anybody in the league. Really. Top
and 3 pitchers Cy Young starting conversations.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? How many teams have we seen in our lives that have even multiple Cy Young players that are in the conversation for that award? So that's pretty incredible.
That's
in itself.
Very rare. And as you mentioned, the top 10 in the top 10 Cy Young odds in Vegas, we have Luis Castillo, who's ahead right now. He's number 2 in the league and the Cy Young considerations. George Kirby and is around 5 or 6-ish, depending on which odds makers you look at, and then Gilbert at around 10. So that's really amazing that they're all in that conversation.
Yep. So I mean I think it's, again, super exciting times. And this team on paper, I think, which is the most interesting part to me, as just a baseball fan, on paper this team isn't strong like an Atlanta Braves roster or a Dodgers roster or a Houston roster where you see these big names that are putting up big numbers. You have guys like Cade Marlowe or a Josh Rojas or a Dominic Canzone, or how I love to call him, Dominic Calzone. Okay, and you have these guys that just don't have a lot of their names don't stick out. Right, even Cal Raleigh doesn't really stick out. I mean, maybe in Seattle, of course, everybody knows him. But if you go around the league, you name Cal Raleigh, and most people probably will be like, "Who the heck is that?"
Who is that?
Right.
Even
though he's probably, arguably, the best offensive catcher in baseball. Yeah. My opinion, and statistically too.
I think more people know Adley Rutschman, right?
Oh yeah.
And as far as Baseball Reference is concerned, they're right toe-to-toe as far as WAR is accumulated this year. So really, Cal Raleigh, one of the better catchers in the league, quietly one of the better catchers in the league. And as we saw the Mariners, they won 2-3 today, and we'll just talk about a couple of players and how they performed. Julio went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and 1 home run. What do you think about Julio's recent tear?
I think this is what the player that we expected to be. Yeah. Right? This is the player that we expected the entire season. The struggles early, I think everybody knows about the sophomore slump and what that means. Is it true? Is it an actual thing? I'm not sure, but everybody knows that there is such thing as a sophomore slump. Yeah. And maybe we saw a little bit of that in the beginning of the season, but I think this really is what Julio is really about, and he's so young still, which is crazy, because what that means is that he is only getting better.
He's only getting better.
He's only getting better from this, and he's playing like one of the best players in the league right now in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he is the best player. I'm just saying in the last few weeks he's been playing that well. Yeah. And the fact that he can get better from that is really, really cool and really exciting for us fans.
Oh yeah.
So he's been playing out of his mind. Yeah. I think he broke the record for most consecutive hits.
Yeah.
In
that was
span.
17.
Yeah,
17 over 4 games, number 1 in MLB. And recently, yesterday, the first player ever to get 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in their first 2 seasons. So
yeah, he's setting records all over the place.
Yeah.
Fastest player in Mariners history to hit 50 home runs.
Yeah. One of 2 players to get 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in MLB history. The fastest player in Mariners history to get to that point, which tells you what? The second person to do that was also a Seattle Mariner, and probably, in my opinion, the best comp for Julio Rodriguez, and you know who that is.
You go ahead and say it, because you're so excited.
That's the kid. It's Junior, right? You got speed, perfect, true 5-tool player. You got speed, you got defense, you got power, you got contact. I am so excited for this kid. He's got the perfect smile, the perfect love for the game that we haven't seen really since Griffey.
And such a connection with the fans.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool, right?
Yeah.
He's been playing lights out. And talking about lights out, we'll shift to the pitching staff.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of touched about this a little bit ago, but that's something that we wanted to really talk about.
Yeah.
Was how good this starting pitching staff has been.
Yeah.
And not just for this team, but around the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And Luis Castillo today went 7 innings with no earned runs, only 1 hit and 1 walk with 6 strikeouts. Another great showing from Luis Castillo, really solidifying his name in that conversation, that Cy Young
and
conversation.
His nickname, La Piedra,
the Rock.
The Rock.
Really. He really has been the rock of our rotation. Right now we move on to Teoscar Hernandez, our big offseason signing. He went 3 for 2 with a home run today. He's kind of been hot recently too, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's hot, but I think that's kind of been the story of the season, where he gets hot, then he gets really cold, and he gets really hot.
Yeah.
Love it when he's hot. I would love those cold streaks to get a little bit less common, less often.
Yeah.
But let's hope that can continue, or at least he can kind of be a little bit above average, especially as we get closer to playoffs. Love that if he can continue that streak into playoffs. That would really help.
Yeah. Let's now move back to the pitching staff. Andres Munoz finished out the game with the save. 1 inning pitched. No base runners finally today, and he struck out the side. Is that the kind of person that we should expect moving forward, or do you think he's still going to be a little shaky?
I hope so. I think we've all seen as Mariners fans how much struggle we've had to find a solidified closer after the Paul Sewald trade.
Yeah.
Brash has struggled.
Yeah.
Munoz has struggled. In my mind, they're really 7th and 8th inning guys.
Yeah.
I know there's the power that Munoz provides. I know there's the nastiness that Brash provides. I just don't think they're closing types. Yeah. But I think we're gonna have to skid by this season. So one of the two has to figure it out. I hope that this is the first step in that direction for Munoz, where he can just kind of shut down the ninth, keep it simple. I think both of them have one thing in common, is that when they start to struggle, they throw way too many balls. Their command is off, and they start getting base runners. They panic a little bit within themselves, and that's why we see runs coming in. That's why we see mistakes. Even though he is throwing 101, 100, it's still a fastball when he throws it right down the middle. And and like we say, throughout anybody's baseball career, they supply the power, you supply a great swing, and the ball goes far.
Absolutely.
So
I completely agree. I really think as of now in their careers, Brash is a 7 guy, Munoz is an 8 guy. Sewald was that grizzled veteran, in that 9 spot. And, who knows? Down the road, I think Munoz might be the best closer we've ever seen. But as you said, once they start to spiral, things could go really bad for them, as we've seen, in those extra innings losses against a really good Orioles team, which we probably should have won, but it's
easily could have been a sweep.
It could have been a sweep, but it's part of the growing pains, right? We have a young team, and there's no better way for them to get that maturity than close games in a tight playoff race.
Yeah, and I think something that comes with being a closer is, it's just like any position, any position on any team, you have that role. And a closer has that mentality that I am here to shut down the door. I'm here to get the last 3 outs. That is my job. And when you don't have that as a closer, I think that makes it a little tough, especially when you get put in that situation, and that's not your normal situation. We look historically at closers in baseball, and you just know that that's what their mentality is. When Mo Rivera would come in, Jonathan Papelbon, JJ Putt's a Mariner, right? Even Tom Wilhelmsen, we know as a Mariners fans, most people around the league probably don't know who he is. But the bartender, right? But he had that just charisma about him that, right? It's last call, right? That's what Dave Sinsworth would say, right? Hey, last call, bartender, right? But that was his thing, right? And you have that mentality. It's like, it is last call, and I'm the guy. I am the guy to get those 3 outs. And when you don't have that as a closer, I think that makes it really tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Some bright spots, as we've seen after Sewald left. One of them who pitched today, Justin Topa, 2 innings, 2/3 of innings pitched, 2 strikeouts, came in to close out that inning after Gabe Spira kind of gave up a couple of runs, made it really scary there for a bit. But he's been a bright spot. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I think the bullpen has been actually mostly above. I know we've been kind of talking down about it, but I think they've really been mostly above average. It's super hard to repeat what they did last year. I think that that's just kind of unrealistic to expect that they're going to keep doing that year after year after year. Where you have such low ERAs, everything is shut the door in your face. The bullpen came in and you kind of expected nobody to score runs. That just doesn't happen continuously. So they took a step back, but I think they're more at a reality point, and they're still good. So I think we just really got sweetened by the fact that they were way above average last year, and we got used to that. And now they're kind of above average, but normal above average. And now we're like, what? What's
going on? There's a little
why are you allowing a base runner? Why is not everything a strikeout?
Right, absolutely. So looking ahead to tomorrow, we've got the first game of the Oakland Athletics series. This is a pretty pivotal series here as we go in 3 games with the league's worst team. What do you see for us in this series as far as the playoff race goes?
I think the Mariners have proven in the last few weeks to be able to take care of business against these weak teams. I expect that to keep going.
Yeah.
I know in earlier in the season we were struggling we were getting wins against Oakland, but we were kind of struggling, But I kind of expect them to kind of shut the door here. Yeah. I think now that Oakland's officially eliminated from the playoffs, I think that kind of puts a sour taste in their locker room where it's kind of give up time.
Yeah.
And Mariners are really pushing.
Yeah.
So I think they should squish the bug on this one. And to drop any games, I think anything really less than a sweep against these A's is
disappointing.
It's kind of disappointing. Just looking forward, and we'll get there in a second, but looking forward of what they've got coming. These teams that they need to take care of, they just got to squash the bug.
Yeah, absolutely. So tomorrow the pitching matchup is Adrian Martinez for the Athletics versus Brian Wu. This is going to be Wu's second start back from the IL. Last outing, he was only limited to 4 innings pitched and only gave up 1 run. Martinez has a 5.12 FIP this year and a 6 ERA, and Wu has a 4.58 ERA, which has really been ballooned by a couple of really bad outings, and he's really been a lot better than that. What do you think of this pitching matchup?
Again, I think it favors Wu. I think this is a great opportunity to bounce back against a weak team. And find some confidence, right? So much about any sport and everything is having your confidence, right? And if you can build confidence, have a strong start, especially against a favorable team like the Oakland Athletics, I think that really is good for him going forward, especially when we maybe get into playoffs or we start facing teams that are a little bit tougher. I think he should have a strong 5 innings. I don't think they'll push him any further. But a strong 5 innings and hopefully got a good offensive burst out of that too.
Yeah, I really think so. I think the Mariners at this point, they need to keep their hitting rolling, right? We only scored 3 runs against a not great pitching team. We got to get back to scoring. 4 or 5 is a good number. We don't have to score 15 runs like we did every single game.
I mean, I'd like that.
We'd like that. We'd love to see it, but we don't really have to do that. But just keep our confidence up. Get on base and really keep the ball rolling. So we kind of touched upon the bullpen woes a little bit. What do you think that Paul Sewald trade, what kind of effect do you think the Paul Sewald trade kind of had on the Mariners' success since the trade deadline?
Yeah, we discussed this before earlier. I think it's really been evened out. If let's look at the Sewald part of it, we lose our closer, right, our legitimate closer. And because of that, we've had setbacks in our bullpen that have cost us a few games, right? And so that's been frustrating. I know that's been frustrating for fans because at the trade deadline you're looking to build, you're looking to add some guys, and we trade a guy like that, and then you see the effects of that, and you're like, okay, what the heck are we actually doing, right? What is our direction? And this is obviously before a big stretch of big wins, right?
Yeah.
But then you add Josh Rojas and Canzone, and without them in some games, we actually wouldn't have won games.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think it's kind of been give and take in that sense. And then you think about it in a different perspective, and you say, well, let's say we keep Sewald, right? You don't have Josh Rojas and you don't have Canzone, and your team depth wise looks so thin. You have you have Dylan Moore, Caballero, Haggerty, and I know we've called up Trammell a few times and whatnot. But it's so thin where I'm not sure if those guys would have come through in those situations, right? So it's kind of even, and now that we have those guys, Now Dylan Moore is a backup. Now Caballero is the backup. He's coming off the bench. Those guys are earning their starting time, and now there's a little bit more depth.
Yeah.
But what I do think is going to really determine who won that trade is when it comes to playoff time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What effect is not having a closer like Sewald that we've had going to do this team, and what effect are those two bats going to have? Are they gonna shy away? They fall back into the shadows and not produce, or are they gonna help us in having more offensive depth and get 1 or 2 runs that we need in playoff time? Because pitching rules playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be super, super interesting. I'm kind of excited and a close eye on that in terms of we're going to talk about that trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna do a hot take right now. I think because of the trade, the Mariners are actually better suited for the playoffs than they were before because of that said depth that you said that you mentioned. Now with Canzone and Rojas, we don't have AJ Pollock and Colton Wong on the team anymore, right? They have kind of eliminated that black hole that we've seen whenever they're in the lineup. I really liked Colton Wong. I was really excited for when he came, and then super disappointed. But at some point, we realized that you kind of have to move away from him.
Right.
And Rojas, since coming from Arizona, has been such a great contributor to the team, and Canzone as well. And so with those two guys, and now Mike Ford kind of getting a little bit more playing time, Mike Ford has over an 800 OPS, good for 4th on the team. He's kind of, I feel as if he got more regular playing time now that Pollock's gone, he could start getting on a roll as well. And in the playoffs, because we go to a 3-man rotation, we put Miller and Wu in the bullpen. I think those guys will be really good coming out for 1 or 2 innings. Or God forbid if we see another 18 innings game, right? It'll be good to have a couple of those guys in the bullpen.
Right. And one thing that I didn't mention before, but if we do compare AJ Pollock and Colton Wong to these two guys, I think that Canzone and Rojas fit this locker room better.
Oh, yeah.
They seem way more relaxed. They seem like they're actually having fun.
Yeah.
AJ Pollock, a veteran. Wong, really a veteran, too.
Yeah.
Coming into a new a team that's already kind of gelled from last year, and I didn't think they kind of fit in.
Yeah.
And that might have been what was holding them back to producing, right? We talk about chemistry.
Yeah.
And Rojas and Canzone are kind of these, maybe a slightly above average. Not, they're not superstars by any means. They're just kind of role players.
Yeah.
But they seem to fit the MO of this team.
Yeah.
Way better than those two guys, and that's kind of, I feel like, what's propelling them to play better and helping us go on the streak that we've been on.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And on that note, let me ask you a question about this guy who I feel like doesn't have necessarily the personality to mesh with this team, who maybe put a little too much pressure on himself to perform and is currently on the IL because of that, Jared Kelenic. What do you think we do with him when he comes back?
That's tough. That's tough because you've invested so much time in a guy, and he really was, when we were struggling, one of our few bright spots. Actually, it's funny because when I went to a game with my dad, and now he's since moved to New York. He was kind of updating him on how the Mariners were, and he's like, "Yeah, I seen they haven't been doing well." And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, Kelenic has actually been playing really well, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Right? Everybody else sucks right now."
Yeah.
So, but I think to answer your question, I actually would be a fan of not just giving him the spot right away.
Yeah.
Because one, putting aside how he got on the IL, right, which was a boneheaded decision, out of frustration. Injures himself because he went kicking. What was it?
Cooler.
The cooler, right? Putting that aside, the chemistry is so tight right now, and to start messing with that now, I think it just doesn't work. I think actually thinking about this now, I actually really think that he'd actually be really well suited to put in with Ford at the DH maybe here and there, right?
Yeah.
For a couple games, Kelenic a couple games, just to get him in. You want him to get his at-bats, but I think it would be a mistake to just throw him in there and then start taking Rojas out or one of these other guys
who've Cade Marlowe, who's been playing well.
They've earned their spots.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's super unfair to just throw him in there because he's Kelenic, because we really traded for him when we did. I think you don't want to mess with chemistry, but you're just so close.
Yeah.
Not only to the playoffs, you're so close to winning this division.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to mess with too much stuff.
Yeah. And when you win this division, you know you're going to get that first round bye, that extra, rest. So that's immensely important. And so when you bring back a guy like that, you don't want to alienate your other players,
and
right?
You guarantee yourself some home games.
Yeah.
And I know the Electric Factory is dying to host more than just one 18-inning game.
Yeah.
So
which really was 2 games, right?
Yeah, so we got 2 games out of it. Man, we scored 0 runs.
0 runs. Right. But you have these guys, they're on a roll. You can't, you shouldn't fix what isn't broken, right? And I feel really bad for him. I know he wants to perform. I know he wants to be so good for this team, but I personally, I want him to succeed so badly. You just overall hopes that this is the kind of guy that you want to succeed, but man, at what cost?
Yeah, and hopefully it's just like a learning lesson for him.
Right,
or something like that. He's still super young, so. But no, so excited, so excited. I can't. I mean, we've got so many tickets lined up to go.
Yes, yeah.
We're planning on getting more.
Yes,
I mean,
we're gonna go to so many games this year. It's gonna so many more games, and the stadium. It's been so electric. They call it the Electric Factory for a reason. So electric. All the fans are so good, and we haven't. So many people have moved to Seattle recently, and they've kind of taken up this new team for them, right? And I don't want to call them bandwagon fans because even though they might be, but at the same time, coming into this new city for them, taking up, and
a fun team at that. It's not like just like they put a bunch of superstars there. Yeah. This team's so fun to watch.
It's not like you go to, anywhere in the world and someone's wearing a Yankees hat, right? Like these, So when we went to the game yesterday, on the way down, we took my girlfriend and I, Caitlin, we took the train down, and there were a couple of people who had just moved from Asia wearing Mariners caps, and this was the first time they looked like, they were trying to figure out where to go and how to get there, and it was their first game that they've ever been to, and they were super excited. So you can't, for me, Mariners baseball is so romantic, right? Like, being a Mariners fan from the 90s until today, you go through so many ebbs and flows, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more in future episodes, but you go through so many ebbs and flows. It really is, you can't help but be in love with this team when they're doing well, and you can't help but say, it's okay if they're not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's not like I wasn't in love with these teams when they were losing 100 games.
Yeah, no, we were.
I was in love with those teams. So imagine how we feel.
Yeah. Those were some of the best years of our Mariners fandom, right? We were talking about how when the Mariners sucked, it was actually so much nicer to go to the games because there was nobody there at the stadium, and you could get anywhere you wanted to.
No lines. I was in and out of the bathroom in 30 seconds. Yeah. Right? And it's so fun that we, with you and some of our friends, we name all these random Mariner players that literally were so bad. So bad. But we all remember them. We all love them. Thank you for your contributions. Right? It led us up to this moment where now we're fighting for a division again.
Yeah, absolutely. You see some of the lineups. We played a Sporkle quiz. I think it was like last week or a couple weeks ago, and we were doing all the Mariners opening day lineups, and we could see we were going back from the 90s, and then from back when we were really young to today, we were doing those ones first. And then we're in the middle. We were trying to figure out those, 2010s,
it just changed 2000. So much. I mean, the only consistent one was really Ichiro
and Seager and Felix, right? But then we're looking at some of these lineups, and it's like, well, these guys probably shouldn't have even been on
Casey Kochman one year, if you guys remember who that is. So
we had Henry Blanco and Chris Iannetta, when after his peak.
Love it. Love the Mariners. Love this team.
Yeah. So we're gonna have fun. This is a new podcast, new show. We do we're going to do a Mariners show. We're going to try to do it 6 days a week after Mariners games, just so you get updated. And we really have fun talking about the Mariners all day in baseball. And we have a bi-weekly MLB show called The Rundown, where we run down the playoff race, news, and we just kind of...
Everything baseball.
Everything baseball.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? And also, who doesn't like opening up baseball card packs, right? I just got into it. We had the MLB All-Star Game here this year, and I went to the Topps booth. I got really back into it, and I haven't felt like this since I was a kid, collecting Funko Pops.
Who said we were still not kids?
Well, yeah, true.
We're just big kids.
Yeah, we're just big kids. Yeah. So we're also going to do card pack openings, too. So stay tuned. Let us know what you guys think as Mariners fans, whether or not our takes are good or bad. Call us whatever you want, but let us know what you think.
Yeah,
right?
Go ahead, subscribe, like, comment, whatever. Make fun of us. These are literally just our opinions. We're just having fun with it. No offense. It's super hard to offend me. Yeah. Honestly, dare you to try. But thanks for watching. And stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We'll see you guys tomorrow.